have been working in interior design for about 9 years, and I just founded my own company back in October. Previous to that, I did work with P3 Architecture for 5 years, and was in Alberta before that. So I never really thought of myself as someone who was working with Hertiage. That just didn't really come to the start of my mind until last year at an event similar to this. I met Sandra, and we started to get talking about what the Hertiage actually was. And we got talking even more in September when she interviewed me to be a person for living with Hertiage there. So we sort of got to talking, so I thought I'd talk a little bit about what she was really interested in. And so what Sandra was really interested in was my past history with working with these projects which represented Saskatchewan. And I did these with P3 Architecture, and P3 Architecture did win the award for the Premier's Interior Design last year for the Hockey Hall of Fame, and then this year Best of Canada and Canadian Interior Magazine for Art Festival. So that's sort of what she wanted to talk to you about how we came to this renovation process and that. And then past that, I'll get into some of our new work. So interior design, when I got to thinking about interior design and Hertiage, what interior design is really about is identity. It's about developing identity to a space and finding the culture of that. So whether it's home or retail or commercial, it's really about finding who you are and expressing that and making it work. So most interior design projects are renovations, which are dealing with existing buildings. So that's function, culture, site, space, and concept. And those together sort of create the living heritage of the space. So it's what the space was used for in previous lives, it's what it's going to be used for in the future, and so on. So these are two really simple projects which were renovations, which were done in P3 for us there. And one on the right is the University of Education auditorium, and the one on the left is the Deacon Baker Center in Saskatoon. Both of these projects had existing buildings. The one on the right, we had to change because of function. Usually we end up doing renovations for a functional problem, and that was the sound wasn't incredible enough for music and for all the things they wanted to do. A lot of this is because of the way technology develops over time. So something we decided to do was to keep the existing wood slats at the top, and we had to actually take them down and put the flame retardant material on them, and then put them back up. So this is an area where we decided to take an old space, find its architectural feature and bring it alive again. So a lot of times going through these spaces, we're trying to find what works, we're trying to breathe a new life into it. The other one is the Deacon Baker Center in Saskatoon. And it was a mid-century building, and so what we did is we actually opened it up and gave it more light, and we took inspirations from the mid-century concepts of that. So those are simple renovation ones. Now for the Saskatchewan-based buildings, we had to look at the concepts. And so that meant, what is Saskatchewan? What are the graphic qualities of Saskatchewan? What represents us? What can we take from Saskatchewan and define it with design? So I've done this for about 3 or 4 projects now, and I think if I did it again, I'd find even more ways to define Saskatchewan. So we actually have a lot of design inspiration right in front of us. You can see that the prairie structure is there. So you've got the telephone poles, the grain elevators, which we just saw. And we've got northern lights. So we have a lot of the stuff from Saskatchewan all around us. And different areas. So this first project was actually the Saskatchewan Hockey Hall of Fame. And we started to look at that space, it's in Swift Current, and how we would define that. And what our first thought in my head was, what is Saskatchewan hockey? And we thought, you know what, that's going on the frozen pond, that's skating on the frozen pond, and that's bringing that into it. So what we did is we took those elements, we brought them forward, and then as we started examining the whole project, it was, what are the stages of becoming on the wall of Hockey Hall of Fame? So if you were going to become on that wall, you'd start probably on a frozen pond and work your way up. So that's going through the hockey rink, that's going through that whole experience, and that space is really meant to take you on the experience of someone who can eventually get to that wall. So that's how that came about. Now, our coolest school is the one that Sandra and I really got to talking about. And that's because it sort of overlaps with the eco-museums at the same time. Now, our coolest school at the time was meant to be the first school of its kind, and the kids decided the concept would be Saskatchewan. So, as designers, the whole team had to come up with a solution where we could represent Saskatchewan in a building and come up with some learning tools. At the time, it was supposed to embody 21st century learning and find learning moments within. So as designers, we decided to look at the landscape of Saskatchewan and apply that to the school. So on top of that, another design problem was that each community of students, PLCs, personal learning communities, all wanted to be identified differently. So what we did is we each gave them a geographic region of the province to be identified by. And so you can sort of see that the south side of the school ended up being the south part of Saskatchewan, which is the grasslands. And that's where the kindergarten VKs are, and also the media center. So everything there was used lines which were very horizontal, very prairie architecture. And on the north side, we had more of the rural and forest and Royal Plains, and then the Tiga shield as well. So you can sort of see these are some pictures. So there's the school, and that's a beautiful picture in the middle before there's any students or any furniture. But it's a really good picture to show you of the carpet pattern we did put in, which was an aerial. So you can sort of see how we used the landscape of Saskatchewan right in there, so you can see it from the upper floor. And you can sort of see on the top right, there's the pictures of 3-form, which is actually a material we cut in half, which takes you up to the second floor, where it's just the Tiga area. And then just underneath that, that's actually the PK and kindergarten washrooms. So the little guys who are in the grasslands have this little washroom with the cow floor in it, and they love that thing. So it was one of those elements when we were designing it. I wasn't sure if it would make it to the end of the project, but it did, and it's actually one of the things that gets talked about most. And then at the bottom, we have a picture of the door case, which goes into the media center, which is actually 2 bookcases. So it's actually bookcases open in the media center. And then there's just pictures of the living wall. So there's a group of us in front of the living wall for a tour we did fairly recently of the giant school. So these pictures are in school now, and I just wanted to show these as sort of living with culture. So culture comes and you do your best to do things, and school just goes on. So that's it with furniture and stuff. You plan for everything you can. And as you go with living with culture, this is actually altercations they've done to it for the visually impaired students. So as much as preparations you do and you collaborate, we're still trying to find ways with living with the culture within. So they have the yellow areas because of the contrast for the stairs, and they have these sort of textured elements which they call a highway, so they can use their stick. And then they've actually had to put the tape around the columns. So that's sort of living with culture and how interiors are always living and always growing and always becoming something different. So I thought it was pretty good to acknowledge this and show some ones. So this here is actually the visually impaired kitchen that the school board recently did. And so this was done with Dan from RPS. And so he actually went on an experiment with the students where they had different glasses on and they scratched them all up. They could see differently, and to them this is actually what living with culture and design is to them because of all the different contrasts. So it just shows you that function is equally important and how living with culture just sort of moves on in a project. So this project is a new one. So this is the wheelhouse, and it used to be Big Sky Cycles. So that's the old Big Sky Cycles, and then you can see the little bike pieces in there. And this is what it's going to be in the future. So you sort of come in, and there's a reception, and a juice bar, and an area to change, and then you've got the vault area. I'm going to get into an explanation of why it's called vault. So here's the reception area, and you can sort of see we're trying to use some salvage wood materials and things from around the province where we can. And so we've got the juice bar and the bar right over that. You can sort of see that bottom picture of the bikes. So we're actually, when we went to site, the contractor wanted to take away all the old bike parts from Big Sky Cycles, and we said, nope, please keep them, we're gonna do something with them. So we kept all the bike parts from Big Sky, and they're all in the basement, and we're commissioning them to make them all pieces of art for the new studio. And this here is called the Vault, and this is the big studio. And this old site actually used to be a bank. So that wall there is existing, and it's an old bank vault. And it's the concrete and the steel and everything in it. And so what we're doing is, instead of trying to get rid of it, because number one, that would be expensive and hard, but we're trying to make a feature of it. So with these entrepreneurs, we are turning this bike studio into something special, and it's actually called the Vault. So that will be happening in the future. So because of this, we decided we really wanted a pretty awesome door to go into the vault. And so that door on the left is from a building on Holzer Street, which we sort of fell in love with, and it's an old metal tin fire door. And you can sort of see the variant. So we were all set to take this door off of a building on Holzer Street and apply it to our biking vault. But in the end, they wanted to keep it, probably because I loved it so much. I saw the back. So then we moved on and we started to hit the yard, the salvage yards, to look for materials to get a door, and eBay, and all those great things. But in the end, what we ended up doing is we found the blueprints to make these type of doors, and we actually had to finish to need an artist out of here to do that. So that's sort of how my profession is in fact living with Hertiage. So I just want to leave you with a quote. Every great architect is necessarily a great poet. He must be a great original interpreter of his time, his day, his age, from